Welcome back. All right, so it's another list today. We're going to list forwards. And again, I like putting together lists. I don't consider them to be definitive or like here's the, arbitrary ruler. Like it's weird, right? I've got a large YouTube channel which I'm grateful for every day. Thank you guys so much for watching. And this is just my one opinion. It has no effect on a player's money or how a team does or how that player does the following season. It's just for fun. So that being said, and aware that these lists end up elsewhere, and people are like, oh, what an idiot. All right, well, again, I've looked at lists from all over the internet. The lists never quite match up. So we're going to count down the top 12. Top 12. I don't know why I said 12 weird. Forwards in the NHL, and I've included their points totals from 2018, 2019 until now. I feel like 5 years is good. So first, at 12 is Matthew Tkachuk, who over the last while here has been pretty good. 446 games played, 181 goals. Of course, that's the one I messed up on the writing down the assists. 301 assists, 482 points. Matthew Tkachuk, a Stanley Cup ring, definitely helps his standing. And a Florida Panthers team member makes it into the top 12. We've seen he's good in big games. He doesn't have to score goals to be useful to the team. And one important thing for Matthew Tkachuk is early in his career, he played the game a little bit on the edge. A lot of that has been taken away in that he still plays physical. He still plays that style of hockey, but he doesn't get to the point of being fined or suspended for some of that physical play. So good on him for adapting his game when he needed to. At number 11, I put the first initial there, so I'm going to have to put the first initial for the rest or I'm going to feel weird. It's Jack Eichel. So 330 games played, 138 goals, 199 assists, 337 points. One thing with Jack Eichel since he got to Vegas is we've discovered just how good of an all-around player he can be. When he was in Buffalo, obviously the Sabres, a team that are in the perpetual rebuild, and I don't think that worked for Eichel, and I don't think Eichel worked for Buffalo. I think it was a mutually negative relationship, and of course, his divorce with Buffalo was kind of ugly. And then he wins the Stanley Cup in Vegas. And I think he's a very effective player. The trick with Eichel is getting him to play a full schedule. He was above a point per game again this year, but getting him to play a full schedule has been difficult. But I can't not have him in the top 12. At least personally, I feel like he belongs there. Number 10, Kirill Kaprizov. So he's played 278 games, because of course his rookie season's relatively recent. 160 goals, 170 assists, 330 points. Kaprizov is that explosive forward that Minnesota hasn't really had throughout their history until he showed up. I'm not saying they haven't had really good forwards, guys like Gaborik and whatnot, but Kaprizov's on a whole next level. Could very well score 50 goals, could very well get above 100 points this year if he plays the full schedule, and keeps Wild games interesting. There are times where a Minnesota Wild game will be put to sleep. And then you're like, all of a sudden I'm excited and I want to watch because Kaprizov's line's on the ice. That checks out. So Kirill Kaprizov is number 10. I also want to throw out there, this is the first time I've worn my Man-at-Arms jersey. I got it for dirt cheap from the Geeky Jerseys website. I think it was $59. I was like, yeah, I'll get Man-at-Arms for $59. I'll find a video where I can use it. And here we are. Number 9. So as we get into the Nashville numbers, Artemi Panarin. Panarin, 429 games played over the time period from 2018-2019 until now. 177 goals. Is that a 3? Yeah, 371 assists. 548 points. If the Rangers had won a Stanley Cup, if Panarin had been a part of that, he's much higher. Panarin's contract is fine for his regular season production. 120 points this year is great. However, come playoff time, he's not as prominent. And so for me personally, it drags him down to number 9 instead of being in the top 5. Regular season, he could hit 50 goals this year. But I do think there are questions about, his ability to raise his game to that next level in the playoffs. I think those questions are still out there, but Panarin does end up in the top 10 on the list. Number 8. And there was a lot of questions about me including David Pastrnak last summer. I did see him along the lines of, well, he's a Boston fan. He's playing favorites because Pasternak's not that great. Well, this past season he looked pretty good, and he did it without really, really strong line mates at points. 420 games played since 2018-2019, 254 goals, 270 assists, 524 points. And Pastrnak, again, very, very dangerous for the Boston Bruins. Throughout the regular season, come playoff time, he did have his struggles. It does keep him at 8 rather than being higher. There were certain players that when I was putting this list together, I said, because of playoff issues, that player has to be higher than the other one. That I was trying to weigh them out. So Pastrnak ends up at number 8, but I love Pasta's game. Yes, I'm a Bruins fan, but I mean, if I really wanted to just completely Bruins it up, I could just put him at number 1. I'd have to probably turn off the comments altogether, and then those comments go everywhere else. It would be a disaster. Number 7. So, been talking about playoffs. You have to talk about playoffs with Austin Matthews, don't you? Which is too bad, because in 418 games, he has 294 goals, which is the highest number that's going to be on this board in terms of goals. To go with that, he's got 223 assists, 517 points. Austin Matthews is a goal-scoring machine during the regular season. Makes it look easy. Very little effort needed, it seems, during a lot of those playoff games, or during the regular season. And then in playoff games, where teams get a little more difficult to play against, Matthews has had issues with raising his game. Now, I've talked about how the Leafs in the playoffs are held back by their depth as much as anything. But again, the overall success that the Leafs have not been able to have in the playoffs pulls Matthews down to 7th. Again, Matthews likely would have been higher, but the playoff resume has to be included here. It's the reason Marner doesn't make the top 12. Even though if you look at the scoring from 2019 until now, which is easy enough to do with the NHL app as it is. Marner's had pretty excellent numbers throughout. But again, come playoff time, it's been very quiet, so I can't justify having him ahead of Tkachuk. Having Tkachuk as number 12 really ruled out guys like JT Miller as well, where I was like, well, I'd like to have JT Miller on the list if I could figure... Nope, can't do it. So number 7 is Austin Matthews. Number 6... Do I put an A or an S? I guess I'll put an A. So Barkov is known by the name Sasha as well as Alexander Barkov, but his name is legally Alexander Barkov, so I'll go with the A. But Barkov, and the funny thing is, people still say he's underrated, and I'm not sure how, since we all know how good he is. He can win Selke trophies with the retirement of Bergeron. He has the Stanley Cup ring. He's recorded 462 points over 406 games since 2018-2019. 166 goals, 296 assists to get there. Relax. All right. For Barkov, I've been stressing myself out trying to get these done before we go on vacation. So anyways, but yeah, Barkov, absolutely ridiculous numbers. Very excellent forward. And still, anytime you talk about underrated players, people are like, well, Barkov's underrated. No, he isn't. When every single hockey player goes, man, he's great, I wish people knew it, then we all know he's great. And as players, coaches, fans, we all know how good Barkov is. I have him at number 6 on the board. He is one of the most complete forwards. It reminds me of Datsyuk. Anytime you talk about great players, people are like, nobody ever talks about Pavel Datsyuk. Every time I talk about great players, people talk about Pavel Datsyuk, meaning not underrated. Or forgotten. Number 5 on the board. Thanks, Gary. Promise he's not going to crash into the house. Leon Draisaitl, the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers, of course, getting all the way to the final this past season. 450 games played by Draisaitl over the time period mentioned before. 272 goals, 371 assists. 643 points. Correct. 643 points. So he dwarfs everybody else on the board in points. But again, this is about best player, and so I would have Draisaitl at number 5. Again, 450 games, 272 goals, 371 assists, 643 points. Absolutely phenomenal offensive player. Suspect defensively? Sure, I will grant you that. And it does drag him down a little bit. That being said, Draisaitl's offense is fantastic. He has shown an ability to take over the game. I think he plays better when McDavid's not in the lineup. Just going to throw that out there. I think he's this generation's Malkin. I do. I think he's this generation's Malkin. A number 2 center who could be a franchise player somewhere else. But I think he's fine with his role because very often teams that have that kind of depth down the middle win. So, yeah, Draisaitl, fantastic forward, ends up number 5 on the list. Number 4. Sidney Crosby. So Sidney Crosby has played 408 games since 2018-2019, 181 goals, 299 assists, so 480 points. It is remarkable that Crosby is defying the aging process, but it's worth noting that Ovechkin isn't in the top 12 now, and over the last season, Ovechkin showed clear signs of being older. And being older just means you're going to have longer stretches without a goal. You're going to have more struggles. And Crosby hasn't quite got to that level yet. The difference between Crosby and Ovechkin as well is that Crosby is excellent defensively. So when that offense, which has produced 480 points in 408 games, does drop off, Crosby's still going to have a job in the NHL because he's a very good defensive forward. And I do think that's an underrated part of his game because he's been the face of the NHL for a long time as an offensive force, but his defensive game's excellent. I think Crosby still belongs 4th. We'll see if he's still 4th next summer because, again, that aging process, it is undefeated. I'm trying to defy it as much as I can, but it's not listening. Number 3 on the board. Nikita Kucherov. So Nikita Kucherov has played 360 games since 2018-2019, 173 goals. To go with 366 assists, 539 points. Kucherov is the top-rated winger on my list. Wingers normally don't get ranked as high because normally your best player is in the middle. Normally your best, smartest player will be the guy who's playing first-line center. In this case, for Tampa Bay, Kucherov's been fantastic. Had 100 assists this past season. Has 366 assists in the 360 games played since 2018-2019. That's insane. But yeah, Kucherov's been fantastic throughout. And of course, a couple of Stanley Cup rings there too. And absolutely zero controversy with those Cup wins for Tampa. So he's got that going for him. But Kucherov, first ballot Hall of Famer. Yep. In fact, if I'm going to do this, first ballot. Yep. First ballot. Yep. First ballot, I think, for Kaprizov once we get there. Yes, at 330 points in only 278 games. We're not there yet. Eichel, maybe borderline at this point. Tkachuk, I think with the cup ring and all the points he's put up, yeah, probably first ballot by the time he retires. All right, so a little bit of bonus stuff for you fine people on the internet. Number 2. Oh, I went the wrong... see. Double-ended marker. And it's the same one that I had that problem with in a different video. But there we are. Nathan McKinnon. So Nathan McKinnon, 417 games played since 2018-2019. 221 goals. 375 assists. So that's 596 points. And then I double checked just to make sure I wrote all the numbers down correct, and they are written down correct. McKinnon, excellent offensive player. It took him a while to get there, but once he got there, one of the best players in the NHL. He ends up winning the Hart Trophy this year, and that would have been my vote. I think that McKinnon is one of the best players in the National Hockey League and is kind of fantastically fun to watch from one night to the next. Do I think Colorado can win another Stanley Cup? Sure, and I won't be surprised if McKinnon holds that trophy aloft again. But at number 1, and it's interesting. So when talking about Conor McDavid, and I talk about Conor McDavid a lot, 248 goals, 478? Sure is. 478 assists. 726 points in 438 games. So McDavid has 478 assists, 2 less assists than Crosby has points over the same period of time. 30 more games, sure. But he has more assists than points that some of these players have on the board. McDavid is able to do things out there other players just can't. So 726 points in 438 games is insane. Absolutely insane numbers from Conor McDavid. If not for injury, he would have been closer to maybe winning an Art Ross this year. But in the end, McDavid still reaches 100 assists. So we had 2 100 assist players. Feels like the 80s all over again with those kinds of numbers. But McDavid's a guy who can score it well, and I just feel like there isn't another player in the NHL who has that next gear that he has and the ability to see the ice so well, so consistently. So while I've had accusations that, and it's weird because people will talk about, he loves McDavid. He's always talking about McDavid this, McDavid that. Yeah, like I did about Gretzky when I was a kid. Like we did about Lemieux. Like we did about Jágr at points during his career. When it's the best player in the game, people just give that player that respect for being the best player in the game. The odd part being that the comments about McDavid are out there, and then at the same time, almost as many comments are, but he really hates the Oilers. Okay, make up your mind. Because, again, if I'm going to praise McDavid and wear jerseys that have his name on them all the time, those are Oiler jerseys. So anyways, Conor McDavid for me is the best forward in the game. We'll see how much longer he's an Oiler. My guess is that when the extension talks begin, like they've started with Draisaitl. Who knows? By the time this has gone live, maybe Draisaitl's got an extension signed with Edmonton. I don't think Draisaitl or McDavid are going anywhere. I think they're going to stay in Edmonton because they know they've got a good thing going there. And as long as those two and Nugent Hopkins can be your 1, 2, 3 down the middle, that's a pretty strong center spot and should keep the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs and maybe in cup contention as well. McDavid at some point in time has to win a Stanley Cup. I truly believe that he, as a player, it's not going to look right if at the end of his career he hasn't got a Stanley Cup. But we'll see what happens. He's still in his prime. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always, and I know there will be plenty of comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And again, I wanted to keep the lists simple this year. I got, long lists last year, and I wanted to get a lot of players in, a lot of discussion. And this year I decided, I'm just going to keep it to the top 12. Just keep it simple and do it that way and be done. So there you go. Done ranking forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders in the National Hockey League for another summer. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. It is greatly appreciated. I am very, very grateful and very lucky to have this channel in my life, and thank you guys so much for watching me on the daily. And if you only watch me every other day, that's fine, and if you watch me once a month, that's fine too. Thanks again for all your support. I will talk to you guys soon enough.